The fan base wants us to kick the tires on those guys, especially Bill Belichick. Now, it's half. Half of the fan base says, go get him. The other half is saying he can't coach anymore. Where it really is probably somewhere in between. So, to get the lowdown on what's going down in New England and what's going down with Bill Belichick, I got to call one of my guys, all right? One of my guys, fellow BetQL member, guest, fill-in host, sports personality, sports host at our sister station in Boston at WEEI. An all-around great dude who I've kicked it with, who I've kicked it with on the digital side, talked junk with, made bets with. My guy, KJ Carson, joining me in today. KJ, what's good?
Oh, hell, it's Sean Bell.
What's going on, man?
Here. Well, everything in the world, right? So you talked about these different coaches that, look, I've been kind of weird on Sirianni, right? If you go back like 18 months, you're like, man, maybe this guy's not ready for prime time. You know, greater things tend to happen, and now it feels like maybe you're back at square one if things don't go right against Tampa, right? So this is where the Belichick argument comes in, where this potentially could be the first time we see in the NFL that I can remember where you lose this weekend, you may lose your job. It doesn't matter who you coach for. You may lose your job because Belichick is available. And you mentioned, like, all right, does he still have it? The defense has been there through all this lull of time. So the defense has been there. My concern for you in Philadelphia is that Matt Patricia's already there, and that's a problem. So, it's already a problem.
Trust, we hate him. The people hate him right now.
Hey, try him on offense. You'll really love him.
Yeah. That's what you do. So when did you know? Okay, and again, I'm sort of trying to get a timeline here. We spoke a lot earlier in the year, but I think a lot earlier in the year, there wasn't really much indication. When did you know, or when was it made clear to you that this might happen, what happened today?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to do the clickbait thing. I thought Bill was going to get one more year. Like, if you know, when Robert Kraft was on for the Army-Navy game with Pat McAfee weekend, the weekend where everybody watches that game because there's no other games, and Robert Kraft made the comments that Belichick had been with the organization for 24 years, you're like, okay, this is an old school guy. You know, Kraft has bought a team for $172 million. Now it's worth $7 billion. Belichick is the big reason why you've had successes over those years, why you've made all that money. Why not just do like a 25th year? And then if you break camp at that point, Bill had supposedly had still another year left on his contract. You would figure you would ride it out in the sunset. That's what I thought would happen. I can't tell you that I know that I knew this day would come. I just didn't think it would come down like this. I thought there would be one more year of Belichick. I didn't think he would catch Shula's record. I thought that was good. I think that was a non-starter now, that he wasn't going to stay long. And if he would need like 2 seasons, maybe about 12 wins, somewhere there, 12 to 14 wins. So he wasn't going to go 14-3 next year. He wasn't even going to go 10-7, right? So I don't think there was going to be a 2-year rope for him to be able to catch that. But they'd give him another year, and then he'd figure some other things out down the road, whether he would continue to coach in the NFL or I would think step away from the game or even go to the booth. So, man, I'll be honest with you. I did not believe this was coming now. I thought it would be this time next year.
Okay. So now that what is the fan base saying? Like, what's the feeling in New England of what just went down?
So there's a little bit of buyer's remorse, because it's like, okay, well, damn, like, you know, just think of like the finest girl you've ever dated, and then you decide to break up with her. Well, now you're in charge of going to go find someone finer. And I think that's what some of the fan base is thinking, right? Like, wait a minute, this is the best-looking woman or best-looking coach we've ever had, and who comes after it? So you've got it. So last week I brought up something, and
hey, KJ, you ain't even got a side piece lined up.
Well, see, that's the other thing, though, because if you get caught with the side piece, you lose both. It's like in How to Be a Player, where you get smacked by both of the chicks, and one of them is smacking you because the other side piece has got on the shirt that the girl bought you, right? So look, here's what's interesting, and this is kind of I think this is going to be a bit of a wake-up call for New England, is because New England's so insular. It doesn't really pay attention to what other people think. That's a good thing in some senses. The lack of awareness could be a bad thing. So what I brought up on WEEI was when these stories started to leak out about Gerard Mayo, quote-unquote, being difficult, I was like, look, some guys in this society have to jump over these particular hurdles. You know, like he's literate, so he doesn't sound like Shannon Sharp up there, so he passes that test. You know, he's not a bull in a china shop with chicks at work, so he passes that. So then you're like, okay, well, is he competent? You know, he's competent. So, you know, he's not going to call for the punt team on first down on 1st and 25 at the start of a game, right? He's not going to do that. So then they go to the difficult /aggressive narrative. And that's what I had the problem with, because no one's ever had a problem with Gerard Mayo. Not even anybody getting boisterous with them on the sidelines or anything like that. You've never heard any of these stories. And at the same time is when Mike Vrabel's name popped up. And that's the issue that I have. And that's some of the conversation that's happening right now in New England. You're hearing, well, Mayo's not qualified the way that Vrabel is. And I would say to that argument, okay, if Belichick had just been fired from a 9-18 or got Jim Caldwell, you know, where you're like 10-7 and you're out the door, then I would say I would look at Vrabel closer because he knows what it's like to play games 18 and 19 in a season. Mayo doesn't know that. But damn, we're talking about a team that just won 5 games, okay? So 4 games, I'm sorry. They didn't even beat the Jets in their last game, right? So we're talking about a rebuild. So if coaches have just the same way that Vrabel was a first-time head coach somewhere, why is Gerard Mayo not in line to be everybody's unanimous choice in New England to be the next coach for the New England Patriots? That's where I think some people are kind of watching from a 30,000-foot view at the insular thing that's going on inside of here in New England.
It would, I guess, and that makes it tougher because I was just saying earlier in the show that this is maybe the best coaching offseason of all time in regards to what's available, right? Like, you have the coaches like Mayo that should be great up-and-coming head coaches, but then you also have 3 or 4 guys where you go like, oh, it's a proven commodity. Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh. You know what I mean? There's like 4 guys you're proven.
Right? Mike Vrabel's a proven commodity.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't want to diss Vrabel, but you know, I think in this discussion, the Patriots are not the Patriots of even 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about, hey, you need to step in and we need to continue this winning. It's like, nah, you kind of need someone to step in who can kind of reach the culture of the game today. Get free agents and say, I want to go play for that guy. You know, you see what DeMeco Ryans did in Houston. You're like, man, why can't that happen here? And I think there's a part of the fan base that just doesn't want to see that.
It's crazy. Yeah, because I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't think people remember what New England and Boston was like pre-2000, right? Like it was Philadelphia before 2017, before we finally won one. And again, it was you know, Boston Cubs-ish, where it was just like the Patriots haven't done anything in decades. The Celtics hadn't been good in legit good in a decade, 10, 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, nobody – and the Red Sox haven't won a championship yet. It was like, soon as Belichick broke –
it was a historically bad town for sports. It was like the joke was the New England Patriots stopped people from going to church here, right? So, like what were you doing Sundays, 1998, 1999? They were going to Sunday Mass, spending some time, and may just cut on the game just to see if it would go along nice with their lunch. That's kind of how it was.
Yeah, like,
then it became like, what are you doing when you wake up Sunday morning? It's like, I went to sleep in my Teddy Bruschi or whoever you want to pick from that time, my Terry Glenn jersey. So it really changed the culture. You're talking about with Belichick being let go. It's literally like firing Grandpa, and Grandpa raised you. Like, that's literally what's happening for a lot of kids here. If you're under the age of 25 in New England right now, you have never known anything but Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, and you might have had a Drew Bledsoe jersey when you were born, like a onesie.
The most spoiled brats in the entire city are under 25, under 30 years old, because they got y'all got championships and everything over the last 20 years and everything.
Yes.
So with that said, again, I tell people here, if those who are not familiar, listen, our ownership and GM is too involved, right? Like, they want to run things their way. There's a reason why they had Doug Peterson, and the reason why Doug Peterson left. There's a reason why we got Nick Sirianni. We don't want a guy who's going to come in and have control. So I keep trying to tell people, Bill ain't going to come here and deal with freaking Howie Roseman telling him what offense he should run. But, again, a lot of people feel like it's still a possibility. What is Bill Belichick looking for? Like, what do you think his next step is? What is the type of position that you think would fit Bill?
All right, so for those of my coworkers who are staying up late listening to this conversation on WIP, you're free to use what I'm about to say tomorrow. My philosophy has always been like, and this is the Brady-Belichick argument, is Brady was Belichick's Frankenstein. He created a Frankenstein. He put his mind and DNA inside of an offensive player. They think alike. Most people would never think they think alike. So I could see Bill going, A, to the NFC, and B, to a division that's very weak, where it's not going to be incumbent on him to have 12 wins to get to the playoffs. So NFC South, potentially. Look, I don't think Atlanta's as sexy as one believes, but Belichick in Atlanta now becomes just as relevant, or 1A behind the Georgia Bulldogs, just by showing up in that town. So goes to the NFC South, then 9 games gets him into the playoffs. And I've always said, if Belichick he gets an extra week to game plan for you, and he only has to win 3 games, he could probably win 2 just on his mental acumen and get himself to a championship game where anything can happen. So I think Belichick most likely goes to the NFC and, very much like Brady, go to a weaker conference, go to a weaker division in the conference to get him to a faster track back to the playoffs, because that's it. It's all about getting to the playoffs. So if Belichick can put himself in a situation where he could coach up a team, deal with have a bit of control. I don't think he wants to necessarily call all the player personnel, but he wants to be able to have some players that are already in place. Obviously, you got a quarterback situation there in Atlanta that's absolutely trash, but still not worse than what we've seen here in New England for the last 3 years. Thanks, Mac Jones, for getting the greatest head coach of all time fired. You suck. But, so Atlanta, while it doesn't sound like it would come out of my breath, it would make a lot of sense to go there, because the win the South doesn't require a lot.
So the Chargers you wouldn't say, because, again, that was the biggest one that a lot of people immediately went to because they had a quarterback.
I think that's Harbaugh's job. He was already a California guy. Belichick really doesn't have any ties to California. If you would say, like, hey, where's a place where, he can kind of rest in his own home, kick back, and have his own boat, then he would go to D.C., to Washington, and I think that's a whole other scenario there of what they've got going on. But if Atlanta, where you have an owner that's going to respect and support you, 2, you're in a division just the same way that Brady went to the Bucs, right? If Brady had gone, let's say if Brady had gone to the Giants, Brady doesn't sniff the playoffs, right? So you go to an NFC South team where all you have to do is beat out the Panthers, the Bucs, or the Saints. I would say Belichick would game plan for those teams easily, and he's seen those teams in recent years, like played the Saints 2 of the last 3 years here, the Bucs the last couple of years, even with Brady. So you've seen these teams, you've prepared for those teams, you know what they want to do, and you step in and you got fresh bodies, and you're going to have an excited stadium that's really going to say, you're the biggest thing to come to our franchise, which would be the case with Atlanta, and have a serious fan base behind them and that appreciates them.
And the last question I ask you is, would he want? How much control would he want? Would he want to be the GM again, or are those days over?
I could see those days being over. If he has that, if he's able to choose the GM, then I think he'll be fine with that, right? So if he says, "Hey, I want to bring Dimitroff out out of retirement and keep him back, bring him back already to Atlanta, where he built that team with Matt Ryan and all those guys. If that's what he wants to do, if he wants to call Scott Piola and say, "Hey, Scott, let's do this again. I trust you with you know what I need." Yeah, I could see him doing that. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where I think, say, with Vrabel, who I think wanted more control and couldn't get it in Tennessee, is more likely to go to Carolina because it's like, hey, you can give me some control and I can give you the change of culture that you need. That's why I don't think Vrabel necessarily works in New England, because Robert Kraft wants his team back. You talk about how the Lauries are just too involved with the Eagles. The Krafts are very involved with what goes on with the Patriots. It's just done with the sleight of hand that you'd be like, damn, they just stole my money from the table. I ain't see it, So I think that where with Arthur Blank, it's kind of like, I appreciate what you do for this city and for my team. Here you go. I could see that with Belichick.
Got you. I got you. All right, KJ. Man, thank you for joining me. Thank you for kicking it with me. Listen, I know it's going to be a lot of work for y'all over there over the next week or two. Figuring out who's going to be the head coach, et cetera, et cetera. You got a spicy offseason ahead of you.
We also got the Celtics getting drubbed so bad on TNT right now that they switched out. When did they switch out of NBA games? When does that start happening?
I tried to ignore that. I wasn't even going to bring that up to you. I wasn't even going to bring. Hey, I still got the Celtics as one anyway. So.
It's just an anomaly, brother. It ain't even a story today. Hey, blessed to you, man. Love to the city of brotherly love. And I'm about to watch Trading Places, the greatest movie based in the city of Philadelphia ever made.
Hey, listen, I respect that 100%. KJ, thank you, man. KJ Carson, once again from WEEI, my BetQL brother, kicking it with me for a little bit. But you heard him say it. Bill Belichick ain't coming here. Plain and simple. He ain't coming here. All right, we're going to take a short break, sort of rehash some of this Bill Belichick talk, rehash some of the coach talk, and talk about some of this game on Monday. Not feeling very good about it. 215-592-9494.